Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Culver Board of Zoning Appeals. I'd like to ask everybody if you could please do the pledge, the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On this one.
Not yet.
Whoops. Oh. Oh, it's still in here too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm learning this, and I really don't know what I'm. So if something goes wrong, stick with me, and hopefully Jonathan will correct it. We'll start with roll call. Ms. Marshall, if as secretary, if you would like to do the roll call. I believe everybody is present, but
Mr. Osborne,
Present.
Mr. McManaway,
Present.
Mr. Hubler,
Present.
Mr. DeWitt,
Present.
Mr. Adams,
present.
Emily Marshall, I'm present. And I think we're also joined by Jonathan Leist.
Correct. Would like to remind everybody that if you'd please wait for comments, the board, and I'll try to acknowledge who I'd like to speak or have speak, but if you're speaking for Ms. Marshall's aide, if you could tell or say who you are so she could put that in the minutes, it would be helpful. So if when you come on to say something, if you just please say who you are, it would be very helpful. Okay, first thing I'd like to look at is approval of the February 20th minutes. I would entertain a motion that we do so. Do I hear that motion?
It's JD. I motion to accept the minutes.
And this is Barry Manway, I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. We approve the minutes. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any oppositions? Okay, we passed that 5-0.
Two check marks. Yeah.
And again, I'd like to recommend, unless you're speaking at this point, I would like for you to please mute your microphone, and that would be very helpful to the meeting. We have two petitions on the agenda for tonight. The first one is 2020-002B. This is a petition filed by Dean and Sarah Jones. Do we have somebody from Dean and Sarah Jones with us?
Yes, Dean Jones is here.
Okay. And Dean, Sarah, which one's going to present the petition?
I can present that for you.
Okay.
We are residents of 416 Harding Court, and we've had the property since 2009. And right now it is a two bedroom, 3/4 bath, and then kind of a general open area upstairs where they're sleeping as well. And it's about 1,500 total square feet. And we have the family has 5 members and is getting ready to grow by another. So we're looking at doing an addition on the home, and as you can see, and we would like to be able to utilize the part of the parcel that would be to the north and then it backs up to State Street. So the plan would be to take down the old garage, build a first floor area in that same footprint, and then expand that towards State Street by about 33 feet. And we would not be changing the setbacks. We would just be continuing the same footprint back towards State Street, and that's where our variance would come into play, would be the setbacks there.
And there's also an addition going on the south side of the home, and is that just a porch area?
Yeah, it'll be a kind of a screen porch area, correct?
And on the east side of the present
Yeah,
home,
there's-
is that,
Right, there, we would just continue the east wall. There's a laundry room that's presently there that's got a foundation under that's failing. So we'd like to take that off, but continue that same footprint toward the south to just fill in that corner. So that would be, that corner, the southeast area would be a new area as well. But it would be a continuation of the line that's there now.
and presently the setback is 7 feet 6 inches from the east.
Correct.
That's not changing.
That's to the overhang. That will not change, no.
But you are putting a basement there. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, we've got to put a new foundation. That would probably be crawl space area there, actually.
Oh, okay.
But the footing that's under there now is failing, so we've got to do something with it.
Okay, board members. Mr. Osmer, do you have any questions? Mr. and Mrs. Jones?
Not really. We're trying to look at it and no, I really don't have any questions, Dan.
Okay, I'll come back to if you do.
Okay.
Ms. Marshall?
The one thing that came to mind for me, it's a strangely shaped property. Because
It is.
the rectangle, it has a house kind of sitting in the lower quadrant of that rectangle. But
Right.
what's in my head is something Barry McManaway said a while ago, and he has much more experience than I do, about non-compliance. And when you have a house that's already non-compliant, how much you allow it to be further non-compliant. And this is extending that non-compliance by quite a bit. And I don't know that that's right or wrong, or, that's kind of our job to make that decision, but that's the only comment I would make about it. And then the other thing I would ask is, I didn't see it, and it may be on here, what the percentage coverage was of the property you're building on. What percentage is permeable
Right.
property? If you
It's
know.
on there. It's just under 50%, but
Just
yeah. And that could be adjusted if we remove more of that concrete where we wanted to leave for some parking off of Harding Court.
Right.
We can remove that and gain more percentage there.
Have you had
That's fine.
any neighbors ask you about that, that you're going to now come through that funny dog leg in the back, the driveway through there? I don't think anybody's on tonight asking about it, but have you had anybody approach you about that?
We have not, but our neighbors to the north, they did receive the notice, of course, and they did send an email saying that they were fine with it. They were in favor of it. There's a property just to the south of where that extension will be that's in pretty dire need of work at this point. So this would kind of be going out in front of that a little bit. And to us, it just made sense to try to have an entry off of State Street and put the garage on that side. So aesthetically, it's still going to look like it's a correct use.
Those were really my questions, Dan. If you want to, it was the extension of the non-compliance, just how big that extension was. And then the question about the permeability, those were my two.
Mr. McManaway, do you have questions?
Yeah, realize they're putting another house and they're talking about putting it on the same foundation as far as on a non-conforming lot. correct?
Well, the garage that's there now, we would need to take that foundation out and put a new foundation under the addition that we're proposing. So that part would be new, and that would be mostly on a crawl space, except for the area that we would need to access the existing foundation basement.
So I guess what I'm trying to ask is the variance that you're asking for is actually where the addition's going to go on as far as to the new house.
It'll be in this, it'll start in the same spot as the existing garage. It will just carry further east in that same, on that same plane and in that same footprint, but an additional square footage for the garage that would face State Street.
So we're actually just like Bruce said, well, it's Marshall, but as far as the adding more nonconformity to the lot would be my question there. I know it's on the same as far as setback didn't change, but you're still
Correct.
taking a whole lot more of the setback away.
Correct. Yeah, the setbacks don't change.
Yeah. And out the street, you're looking at the existing house that you're putting on the street side. You say that's 7.5 feet now.
No, that area, that's behind the home, between that and the lot line to the east. The back of the home and the east lot line is 7'6". That's what it is, and that's not going to change either.
Right.
Now, right now, the existing garage is accessible from Harding Court, but we would just be flipping this and accessing the garage from State Street.
All right. I
Very
just don't like adding any nonconformity. It'd be my only problem.
I have a question. Now that the lot how long is the lot to the east that goes over to State Street? How long have you owned that? Is that something you've recently purchased, or is that
No,
always been part of the?
That was part of the original purchase,
Okay.
But we had them combined.
but we just had the two parcels combined, for one tax bill, but we purchased all that at the same time.
And am I correct? That's only about 26 feet wide, 28 feet? Maybe?
29.98.
Okay, I see that now. Well, I'm like you, Mr. McManaway. I'm not real happy with continuing that setback. 1.7 feet and 2.9 on both sides is just, to me, hard to do. One of the things we have to look at is the hardship, and I realize it's a very small lot, a very small parcel, but maybe put a 1-car garage in, maybe put a 1.5-car garage in. I don't think a 2-car garage fits on that lot. I think it's too wide. And I can't, I just don't see extending that on that same 1.7 on the north side and 2.9 on the south side. I don't like that anyway, but to extend it even further is very difficult for me to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, that is my biggest point.
It is an odd shaped parcel, and we were just trying to come up with a way that would make sense to get some more square footage in the house. If we go, it's like any which way we go, we're going to be looking at a variance of some sort.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not, and that's a completely different thing. It's the extension of the garage over the existing area. That's one thing, but to extend that on down to a new garage, it's 2-car garage, which would be very nice to have, I realize. But if that was narrowed a little bit and meets at least the 10-foot setbacks on both sides, that would make the whole thing a little bit more acceptable.
Yeah,
Yeah, 9
that would
foot
leave us
wide.
with about 9 feet. That's the problem.
Dean, can I
If I
ask
could,
a question? Can I ask a question?
I'm sorry, who's asking this
Oh, I'm
question?
sorry, Lee Marshall. Can I just ask a
Oh, I'm
question?
sorry. Yes, Lee.
Dean, when I walked past the property, you had your existing entry, your garage, the existing garage is really kind of attractive. It's almost kind of a courtyard type feeling. Can you move what you're doing forward so you're staying kind of more in the same place and you go up? Do you go up where that sort of existing
Yeah.
driveway / courtyard is? Can you go up there? You can go add a story that way instead of going back into that funny dog leg.
I mean, that's not an impossibility. We could certainly extend it that direction, scoot everything towards the west, to some degree. It won't change our side setbacks anywhere, but, we could scoot that forward towards the west.
You would change it, you wouldn't be adding to them. That exists.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, we'd be adding here, wouldn't it?
Well, we'd have to just basically scoot that whole thing forward towards the west.
Right. But isn't that existing driveway there? And
Correct. Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. DeWitt would like to add something here.
Okay, just to clarify, if this garage burned down or was rotted or whatever, he could rebuild on the same footprint that he has. So that would be a possibility and something that would be allowed in that area. But by coming forward like that, I agree with all of you. We're increasing the nonconformity. There is quite a bit of space there going to the north.
West.
This
is.
Yeah. And, I would think that should come into play before we think about narrowing that side. We have to think about our firefighters, most of them are in better shape than I am, and they can get down a 5-foot carrying their backpacks and or equipment. But once we start getting less than that, it gets very sketchy. So, it would be my recommendation to take a look at how we could make that go to the west and still get what
Still be
needs, but that's
non-compliant.
Mr. Adams, I do have a email. Can I read that?
Yes.
That would
Okay,
still
I have a,
1.7 moving that way, Chuck. You can certainly look at moving it some towards the west, but we're still looking at that 1.7 setback to the north.
I would think put it on the side of the house. Really,
Here or here?
here.
Oh, that's the
This
north,
way.
that's the south side.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, the south
Oh,
side.
sorry.
So if you put it there,
No, he's talking about the south side of the house where at new porch area, if you want to add to that.
That'll work too.
Better possibility is adding to the house.
that would just be added and making a recommendation there. But I do have an email we received on March the 16th that read into the minutes. And Ms. Marshall, I can send that to you. So
Okay.
you'll have it. All right, this is from Kevin Berger. And he says, "Hi, Jonathan. That helps to see the drawings. That's far enough away from my property. I probably don't care enough to go to the meeting. A few comments since I looked at it anyway. Number one, I'm guessing that the dashed line, not the gutter, which is usually included in the variance. There had better be gutters and some kind of downspout collector lines with eaves that close to the property line. I would think they should specify something larger than the standard residential gutters as well if they hope to have collection with that long of a run. GIS contours make it look like the neighbors to the north will be draining right against the new addition. From GIS, it appears that there are gutters and downspouts now. Point number two, I don't know that particular property well, but I know some of those along State Street have drives that have violated the ADA cross slope standards on the sidewalks. It's a problem coming out with a reasonable slope with the exaggerated crown and gutter line required for brick streets. Number 3, the plan doesn't show replacing the sidewalk, but if replaced, it should be beefed up and ADA compliant. Number 4, do they have a construction or maintenance easement from the adjacent property owner? 1.7 feet isn't much room to swing a hammer. And point number 5, math doesn't work without knowing the eave openings. They give you foundation dimensions, then they switch to measuring the eaves to the property lines. Doesn't let you add things up and check them. And that was from Kevin Berger, dated March 16th. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board members before I open it?
Yeah, this is Barry McManus. I do too. I have one yet.
Yes, go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, I have a question as far as I know Chuck made the comment as far as the building of the other accessory building on the foundation that's existing, and I don't necessarily agree with that. If it was an attached garage, then it would be, because I know the building of the home, primary structure, is the one that has always been, as far as primarily, given the fact that they can build it back on the original foundation. And as far as accessory structure being the garage, I don't see that as being a hardship to make a 2-car garage and having it more compliant. I just want to make that comment that I really don't agree with that at all.
Let me clarify one thing. Is the current garage attached to the house?
Yeah, it's attached by a breezeway.
Okay, so the current garage is attached to the house, Mr. McManaway.
Yeah. So they would actually be an addition onto the garage as well.
Well, it's attached to the house and a continuation of the garage to the addition.
Right. In other words, it's not going to be on the original foundation. It's going to be further out.
Then what's there now? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, if they built,
Right.
if we approve this, yes.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my point. Because, I mean, to extend it on out would have to be, the hardship would have to be considered in that. And I know the hardship that I'm seeing right now is just the living space due to the growing family.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
see it.
yeah, that's part
I
of
don't
it.
see it. And I don't see it in the garage.
Well, that part of that garage or the expansion would be a master bedroom area.
Okay.
And because of the oddity of the shape of the lot, we just thought it would make sense to access from State Street for the garage.
Okay. Answer my question.
Any other questions from the board before I open it up to the public? Okay, if anybody from the public has any comments or questions, now's the time to ask them.
I do. My name is Jackie, and I live at 415 State Street. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jackie, what's your last name, Jackie?
Jackie Hatcher.
Did you
And
get
I
that?
live in the house with a rundown house. I was told just now. So, but anyway, I would like to know from the southeast corner that he wants to square up in his house. How close is his building going to be to my west property line?
2.9.
Be the same. It'd be 7'6".
And it's supposed to be how many? Is it really supposed to be?
The requirement is 10 feet.
Yeah, so it's gonna be 7.5.
That's what it is now, yes.
That's what it is now. He's not gonna add on to anymore. He's not gonna make it smaller.
Not to the,
No, it's going to be the same.
It's going to be the same. Okay. Because he said he was gonna square it off. So if it's squared off, it would be closer.
It's a continuation of the line that's there now is all. So it's not going to get any closer.
Okay. Okay, and I agree with you about the garage because I was measuring out there, and that's just not very much room out there. But I appreciate you guys and stuff, and that's about all I had to think. That's about all the thoughts I had. And thank you for inviting me. I appreciate
Jackie?
it.
Jackie, before
Yes.
you leave, could you give me your last name again?
Hatcher, Hatcher.
Hatcher. Okay, thank you very much.
Did you get it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And it's been interesting to listen to this, and it's been informative, and it is really. I think getting in and out of parking is State Street. State Street's always, everybody parks on State Street, so there's never an empty spot over here, especially in the summertime. So that would be an issue too. So, but okay, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Any other questions?
We'd be creating off-street parking.
Yeah.
Other questions from the public? I don't believe we have any other questions or comments. Board, are we ready to move to finding of facts? Do you have any more questions?
Motion to close. We need a motion to close public hearing.
Okay, we'll have a motion to close the public hearing on it. Before we go to finding of facts, do I hear such motion?
This is Lee Marshall. I move that we close the public hearing portion.
This
Okay.
is JD Ubler. I second the motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we close the public hearing on it. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, just signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass 5-0. Okay, we'll move to finding of facts. And I will tell you this, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if this variance is denied, then if we go all the way through with it, then it cannot be re-proposed for a year.
Right.
If you want to make changes and maybe come back with something different, a different thing that maybe the board would approve, you can, I would suggest that you withdraw, but it might pass also. But if we go all the way through with the vote and it's denied, then you cannot reapply for a year. So I just want you to know that before we go to the vote.
No, I understand that. You had mentioned possibly sliding the addition toward the west. I mean, is there a preferred recommendation of a dimension or something that would help? Because we obviously we can't go the entire distance because we're getting close to Harding Court. So if there's a preferred dimension, then we wouldn't be continuing that line that as far back towards State Street, then we'd like to hear that as well.
And that was, I don't know that, and I don't know, does anybody have any comments from the board or Mr. DeWitt? Let me just find the drawing here. I just lost it.
Dan, this is Lee.
Yes.
One of the suggestions that Chuck made, and without us totally redesigning their house,
Right.
that they could go south with the house more, where they were going to put the porch, maybe
Right.
where the whole thing is situated on this property. I realize it doesn't utilize much of that dog leg, and I keep calling it dog leg. It's just such a funny little property, but maybe that becomes some other kind of space. But I think the more centralized, perhaps this redo ends up on that initial kind of rectangle that your house is on. I think I think you'll find it easier maybe to fit in what you want to do. Might not move
Yeah.
your garage back, you know what I'm saying? And then maybe your garage wouldn't come back as far into that dog leg.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The dimension of doing the addition going towards the north, we would not be able to do that going south without needing a variance. So I guess that's one of the things that went into this, was trying to keep lines that were there, avoid going further south and have an encroachment there, because it's like, I think no matter what we do, we're going to need some type of a variance.
Right, your encroachment on the
Okay,
second
so-
half won't be as narrow. You know what I'm saying? You have this very narrow set right now that I know you're thinking, oh, well, it's existing, but when then you extend it by so many feet, that's what makes us all nervous. You know,
Yeah,
you
to the south, there's a couple of very large, nice trees, so we were trying to not have to take those down. So there's no trees on that other lot, so that was, but if they have to come down to be in compliance. That would be what we have
And
to
one
do.
of the things that, of course, and if you can meet the setbacks on at least part of it, 10 feet to the south and 10 feet from, and I have no idea, but that would be, and I realize you probably can't meet the 25 feet setback from Harding Court.
Yeah.
That's front yard setback.
Right.
But if you could meet the 10 feet on the other, that would definitely be more appealing to the board members. But I can't guarantee you that would be a yes.
There and then move this way.
No, we'd have to look at the plan.
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
look,
we
we
can
can
look
look
at it.
into that. I mean, I think at that point, then maybe the thing to do is to continue this and then work on some redesign that might be more appropriate.
Would you like to do that then and withdraw this at this point, or would you like to go ahead with the finding of facts?
Well, if we go ahead with the finding of facts and then we don't make this through, then we can't come for a variance for another year, correct?
Well, you can, before we take the final vote on the variance, you can pull it at that point. So yes, we
the
can
finding
do
of
the
facts.
facts. I just wanted you to know that if we go all the way through with it.
Okay,
And you'll be able to see as we go through the finding of facts, we're going to have 3 questions.
right.
And if anybody votes no on any of those questions, then they have to vote no on the variance.
Okay,
Okay? So that'll give you some indication of how the
Okay.
board is probably going to vote. Okay?
that's fine. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move to the finding of facts. And again, remember, board members, if you do answer no on any of the 3 questions, you must vote no on the variance. Question 1, based upon the evidence submitted, I find that, number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Ms. Marshall,
yes,
Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. McManaway,
Yes.
Mr. Ubler,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Ms. Marshall,
no,
Mr. Osborne,
No.
Mr. McManaway,
No.
Mr. Ubler,
No.
and the chair votes no. So that tells you there that it will not pass. So if you would like to withdraw, you may do it at this point, or we will table it until the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's what we're gonna do. Yep.
So, and they're going to withdraw and table it to the next meeting. Okay. Thank you, and hopefully we can come up with something that will work for you.
All right,
Thank you.
Hey, Dan, it's JD
Yes.
Ubler. Do we need to do the 3rd point as well, just so that the Jones family knows how we voted on all 3 during the fact finding, or because
Sure, that's probably a good idea. Would you like to hear that also? How we'd vote on the other question?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, and question 3, the strict terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Ms. Marshall,
No.
Mr. Osborne,
No.
Mr. Manaway,
No.
Mr. Ubler,
No.
and the chair votes no. So both those questions we voted no on. So just wanted to let you know what the three questions were also.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. Ubler. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to the second variance. Variance 2020-003B, and that's a petition by Anthony and Kimberly Kearns. Do we have them on tonight?
Yes, Kimberly is here. And
Okay.
Anthony's here also.
Oh, there she is. And he's not giving you any rabbit ears back there?
He probably will.
And are you going to be presenting the petition?
Yes, I
Kimberly?
am. Yes. Yes, I am.
Does everybody have the, let me find my copy of that petition. Okay, if you'd like to go ahead.
Okay, my name is Kimberly Kearns and my husband Anthony Kearns. We have owned the house on 215 Lakeview Street in Culver for 33 years. When we first bought it, we used it as our summer home. We are now in it. It is our residence that we are in. We do not have another home. It is our permanent home. We would like to demo the house. When we bought it, the foundation has not ever been straight. It's very crooked. We've had contractors look and they have said that it would cost too much money. It was not effective to try to lift the house and save the house as it is. So we have decided that we do want to demo the house. We do want to keep the garage that's back in the back that is not attached to the house for storage for our boating equipment and golf carts and things like that, which always comes with lake property. We always have all the issues for storage. So we do want to keep that for the storage. We will do away with the driveway though, going back to that garage, because we won't need to be taking, things back all the time. Our cars, we do, with the new home construction, we do plan on having a 2-car garage attached to it, with the front entrance being off of Lakeview Street. So that's about it.
Okay. So what you're asking for is let me see here. The north side is a 3 feet setback you're asking for.
Yes. Yes.
And you're asking, and 10 feet's required, and you're asking for an 8 feet front yard from the required
Yes.
25 feet.
Yes,
Right now, the house has a 7-foot setback.
that's correct.
Correct.
On one side, and the north side, it's 0. It's on the property line.
Property line. Questions from the board? Mr. Osborne, I don't see.
What's the comments from the neighbors? Since that existing property line is right on their driveway, correct?
Yes, it is. Well, their driveway is probably 5 feet off. So there's 5 foot in between their driveway and our property line. So the house now, it's sitting like 0 on 0, 0 property. It's right on the edge of it. So actually the 3 foot will give us more distance between their driveway and the house than what we have now existing. And they have known, we have tried to build this house about 3 years ago. We were at the variance board and they're on board. They have no problems with it. They are excited for us to get a new house. So
Okay.
Ms. Marshall, do you have any questions?
When I looked at the property, I noticed, you're building up, are you building up the soil that, are you from your neighbor to I think it's to the east of you? Is your house going to be higher than it is now?
yes, I would like to have it higher. I would not like to take the hill away somewhat from, from their driveway. So it's not such a steep hill coming down from their driveway. So yes, we do want to build it up somewhat.
And will you have, underground pipe or something to just deal with the water off of that? Because the drainage is going to change if you build that up.
Their driveway, they did a really good job when they put their driveway in. It tends to drain down the middle of their driveway and goes out the front of their driveway. For the most part, the water does not come down the hill. It does stay in their driveway. So really, we haven't had an issue with any sort of drainage in all these years. And I feel that building it up will, it will make it even better as far as, drainage goes. Shouldn't be an issue with that.
I thought I saw it in here, but I always ask this question about permeability. Do you know how much you're covering in terms of how much of the space is permeable? You're not covering it either way.
I would say it's probably about 50% with getting rid of the driveway. That will be considered grass. That'll be grass. And we have 29 feet behind our garage, and all of that will still be lawn. So there's quite a bit of grass still available. And then there will be 15 feet on the south side of the house without the driveway. That will be all grass too.
Good. Okay.
That is one of the things that we need to know, because it's required that it be at least 50%, or less than 50%. So if it's close, we probably, and that'll be checked at some point.
Yes.
And could require a variance if it's not. So, Mr. Ubler, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have one related to the Lakeview side, or Lakeview Street side, with the 7 feet offset. It looks like. To what extent will that impact? And as we go higher, to what extent will that impact sight lines of neighbors as we are getting closer to Main Street and the lake and things like that? As I think about the criteria for number 2, that the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. And so I'm thinking about that element as well in terms of Lakeview.
We do not have a Lakeview on Lakeview Street.
Right.
We are pretty much with the garages and the houses on the other side of the street. There is not really a Lakeview. I don't believe that we will be impacting any of their sight lines at all, because the house will be, the garage will be moved back a little bit from the house, so they'll still have good sight lines to the street.
Thank you. And then my other question has to do with Ms. Marshall's question in terms of the height. I do believe that there is a maximum 35 feet in terms of height of the house, and that would obviously need to be reconciled to be approved, I guess. And then I would just also say that I agree. We would need some kind of condition that the permeability doesn't encroach on the 50% or doesn't violate the 50%. Thanks, Jan.
Now, this is a one-story?
It is a one-story. It will be a ranch house. So it is just going to be one story for the main story, but there will be a daylight basement in it also. There'll also be a basement because it is on a hill. So one side will be a regular basement, and then on the south side, it will be more open to, but it basically is going to be a ranch, one story with a basement.
I think
sorry about that.
Ms. Marshall was talking about was the elevation of the ground itself. bringing it up because it's lower than the house to the, quite a bit lower than the house to the north of them.
Mm-hmm.
The elevation of the property rather than the elevation of the house. If I
Thank
put
you.
my-
Thanks for helping me understand the plan a little bit better.
Okay,
Yeah, it was that, because they were going to fill in. That's, you're right, Dan.
right. Mr. McManaway, do you have questions?
Yes, about the 7-foot setback off of Lakeview now, and she's wanting to move it to 8 feet. But my concern is that anytime we come up with a new home, it seems like if it's not meeting the 10-foot setback, then we're not going along with our comprehensive plan because, I mean, the ordinance are set up for 10 feet. And really the only homes that have stopped us from getting in line with the ordinances as far as a 25-foot setback off of the street, then we wind up not keeping up with the comprehensive plan. So I just don't understand why we're still going back to 7 or 8 feet.
Well, and that's from Lakeview. So that's actually a 25-foot setback we're talking about there.
Right, that's what I'm saying,
That's
but we're
front
only
yard.
7.
Right. And I know if you look at many of the houses there on Lakeview Street, they do not meet the 25 feet setback. And that's, an older area. That's really very hard to do along there. My question is, why are we 15 feet from the south side yard and only 3 feet from the north? Why can't that be centered a little bit better?
Exactly.
With using the back garage, with being able to get items in there, like a golf cart, or we need more space on that side to still utilize the garage that is going to be detached. So and the other side, there is a garage that is close to the property line on that south side. So we just would like to keep use of the garage to be able to get in and out of that garage with the golf cart. I feel like we needed more space on that side.
Well, 10 feet would give you enough room to get a golf cart down, I would assume. I have trouble with it not being centered and like I said, being 15 feet from one side and 3 feet from the other. I have trouble with that. And I would also, and I agree with Barry, I think it would be nice to see it move back a little bit more than what it is. And I realize it's not, if you're going to keep that garage back there, keep it from being connected, that would be tough to move it back. But I would like to see it move a little bit more than it is now. I would like to see it, and I think in looking at the neighbors' houses in that area, it's probably closer to, I know yours is up there at 7 feet is the closest to the street. I was looking at that just coming down Lakeview this evening, and definitely sticks out further than the other houses already. And just taking it back a foot isn't going to make a whole lot of difference. But I would like to see it more in line with the other houses on the street rather than sticking out further.
I believe Gordon's house to the north of us, which their front yard is, their front stairs are also 8 feet. They're 8 feet off. The stairs start 8 feet off of the, so this is more in line with the house by moving it back because it is, approximately the same so our front porches would be approximately the same.
Other questions or comments?
Yes, I did some calculations and The lot size is, as stated, that I have is 60 by 126, which is 7,560 square feet. And the proposed new house plus the decks plus the old garage come up to 5,450, which is a little bit bigger than we allow.
The house is, are we going square footage? The house is actually 1,500 with the garage. So I have the house as being like 2,000 square feet.
I thought
Garage.
the foundation, it said the new house was 40 by 58.
Yes. Okay.
And then the decks were 42 by 63.
Oh, no, that the deck is included in the house. That the foundation is 40 by 58, but with the decks, it would be with the eaves and the gutters and everything, it would be 42 by 63.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. The
Okay.
one I was reading on what I had.
Yeah, the deck is only, just a small amount of the house, but that is added in, the amount of the square footage on it.
Okay.
And that also has to include, the coverage also has to include the existing garage. So it's not just the new house, it's plus
Right,
the existing
okay.
garage.
Okay.
Did you refigure that with just the
No, I didn't refigure
40,
that.
40 by 58 and the 22 by 22?
Hang on, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, that's going to be less than half.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like 41, 4. That's good.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions or comments?
Dan, the only thing I would say, and I still get it, because in Culver, everybody always looking for so much storage. The one comment I wrote on this after I looked at it and went and saw the property was like, wow, if that other garage got demolished, they could move the whole house back on the lot. And I get that they want the other space, but it kind of makes centering the house on that lot. It's the same comment you sort of made about the 15 feet on one side and the 3 feet on the other. I can't remember if there's an alley behind that garage. That might solve it too a little bit. They could access the garage from the other side. You're saying not go down the long space alongside the house, but maybe access it from the back. I can't remember whether there's an alley back there. I think maybe there is, but
There is an alley back there, but I don't know that I would be able to turn onto that alley with the garage, because it's, we wouldn't be able to put an entrance from the back, because there's trees and there's telephone poles and the alley is very tight back there. It's a doable alley, but it's not a very good alley.
okay.
Other questions or comments?
I'll just add one more thing.
Yes.
As far as we're talking about that setback on the front, if she's wanting to move even with the one that's, well, I'm not sure which way it is from there, but she said the other one's about 8 feet, and she's only wanting to go to 8 feet. I think that she's actually still trying to stay too close to the road. I mean, I honestly feel that the house should be moved back some.
Okay.
I realize can't get the 25 that we call for, but I mean, anything that's added on to the front as far as space is a big plus.
I agree with you, Barry.
Yeah, I just don't know if I can agree with it. Only 8 feet.
Other questions before I open it up to the public? Mr. DeWitt would like to make a couple comments here.
Okay, in looking at this, the 3 feet is just really, for me, not in the question. We're putting a new house in. We have a chance to correct it. if we took the south side down to 10 feet, then that would give us 8 feet on the other side, which is closer. But on this lot, Jonathan, we can go down to 10% since it's only 60 feet wide. Correct?
No, are you talking about the setback?
Yeah, we've got, or 10%, 60 feet wide, so 10% of that would be 6 feet.
That's only as they get larger, not as they get smaller. So the minimum is always 10 feet. When they get larger, it goes up to 15
Okay.
as the lot gets wider. When we made that change, it doesn't,
Affect
it's gotta
anything
stay
less.
10.
Okay, so if we could get, move that over and split it in the back, a golf cart, a boat, or anything else, you can get down in 10 feet or whatever. That would be at least what I would think on the small side. And as far as moving back, I was looking at the neighbors to the north. They're approximately 13 feet, actually 14 feet from the edge of the property line to their eaves. That's not counting the steps. You're correct about the steps. That starts at 9 feet, but their house is about 14 feet. And then on the south side, it's about 17 feet to their house. So if we could get something more than the 8 feet, I think that would be much better since it's going to be new. So I would like to see both the north side setback increased and the distance from the road closer to the neighbors. If you take 17 feet and 14 feet, halfway in between there's about 15 and a half feet. So if there's any way we could get closer to that 12 to 15, I think would be moving it in the right direction for trying to meet our comprehensive plan. And that's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. DeWitt. Any other questions from the board or comments at this point? Okay, I'll now open the meeting up to the general public. See if there's any questions from the public on this. Do I have any comments or questions? And again, please identify yourself when you make a statement on it.
This is Jeff Mansfield at 222 Lakeview, across the street across the property across the street and to the north. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go right ahead, Jeff.
I guess the one thing I would comment on would be the setback to the front. That whole street, most of the houses, including mine, which I remodeled or added on in the back 2 years ago, they're all very close to the street on the front yard. There was a tear down south of me the year before I did mine, or 2 years before I did mine, and they conform to the front yard setback. And I'll say it kind of looks out of place now on that street, that all of the houses are have that very small front yard setback, and then you get that large one. And from an aesthetics standpoint, I don't think I wouldn't have a problem with them in this situation being that close to the street, because I think it keeps with the style of the neighborhood. Now, if the whole block was being redeveloped, I would say, yeah, keep to that setback on the front yard. But I think as long as it's conforming with the other setbacks in the neighborhood, I would be in favor of it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments or questions from the public? Do I hear a motion that we close the public portion of the variance?
Dan Barry McMahon away, and I make the motion.
I'll second. Dan Osborne.
Been moved and properly second that we close the public part of the variance. Any questions or comments? Not all those in favor, just signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. It's 5 ayes. Any opposed? Okay. Are we ready to move to finding a fact, or do we have any comments or questions before we go to that?
I have a comment.
Yes, Mr. McManaway.
Yes, we were talking about changing as far as the setbacks on the sides, you know, as far as that. I mean, is that going to be in this motion or finding of facts as far as the distance that's proposed now, or what we mentioned?
At the present time, no. I mean, we're just voting on the variance that is presented, which has not, and so we could vote yes. If they would like to come back with another proposal, then we could look at that. But as of right now, no, it's just the present variance.
All right, if they want to find out as far as the finding of facts, as far as results of that, I'm fine with that too.
Okay. Any questions or comments? And again, when you go to the finding of facts, if anybody votes no on any of the 3 questions, you must vote no on the variance. And if we go all the way through and the variance is denied, then you'll have to wait a year to reapply for any kind of variance. If you think that maybe some changes could be made and possibly make it acceptable to the board, then you can withdraw the motion and table this and come back at the next meeting. But we'll move to the finding of facts and you can see how it's going. Okay?
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, question number 1.
What do I do?
The approval will not be injurious to the public, to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Ms. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. McManaway,
Yes.
Mr. Ubler,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including in the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Ms. Marshall,
No.
Mr. Osborne,
No.
Mr. McManaway,
No.
Mr. Ubler,
No.
and the chair votes no. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of the property. Ms. Osborne, or Ms. Marshall,
No.
Mr. Osborne,
No.
Mr. McManaway,
No.
Mr. Ubler,
No.
and the chair votes no. So you can see that the variance will not pass. So if you would like to withdraw and table it, we can look at it at the next meeting if you have some changes you'd like to make.
Yes, okay. I do want to, is your next meeting in May? Will it be in May?
Yes, it will be. The next meeting will be, when is that? I just saw it.
May 21st is the date.
I believe it is May 21st. It's the 3rd Tuesday. Yes, it is, May 21st,
Thursday.
Okay.
Thursday.
If we agreed to some changes now, would
We
you,
can't agree to them. We can give you some, we must vote on the variance as it's written. I think from what we were talking about tonight, you got the feeling that, if you could center the house up and move it back some to the west, to help get it closer to the setbacks. At least make an attempt to make some changes there. You know, ideally, it would be that you wouldn't have to come back to us because you could meet all the setbacks. We know that's probably pretty difficult. But, you know, that would be the ideal situation. We can't give you any guarantee until we see the plans. Okay?
Okay.
That
So
makes
then
sense?
what I need to do now is just say that we'd like to table it for the next meeting and we'll make changes. That's what we need to do at this point.
Correct.
Okay. Because with the meeting in May, we still would be able to meet the deadlines that Mr. Elliott, because our builder is Kyle Elliott through the school building trades. And he has a timeline that we need to follow for his kids to, you know, to start building. So we do have a timeline that we need to match. But if we can do this through the May meeting, we should be able to make those deadlines still.
Okay.
So yes, okay, at this point then it is tabled then, and we
Yes.
come back with new drawings then, right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Now we are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is new business or old business, I guess. What's next? Old business first. Items of old business. Did you have anything, Mr. DeWitt?
I do not have anything at this time.
Board members, do you have anything of old business to bring up?
No.
Members of the public, do you have items of old business to bring up at this point? There are no other items of old business to come up before the board?
Dan, I'm going to make a comment. The new house that is going up, it's off of Main Street to the west, the one that had burnt down, they're building a new home there.
Correct.
Well, it seems like it's covering a lot of that lot. It looks like 70% of that lot is covered. Did that ever come in front of us?
Yeah, it did. I have a hearing on
I'm trying to think, Dan. Chuck and Jonathan are talking about that. They did come before us. I thought I remembered that we had.
That must have been, I must have not been on the board at that time.
corporate name of the owner, but it was there, and I believe it's in Ohio. Right, or was it Marmont?
It used to be Marmont, so maybe it's Marmont. It should be Ohio Street now.
All right.
But yeah, you're right. It did come before BZA at some point. I remember that.
Okay.
It did.
Okay.
It's Lee Marshall. I do remember, now I know which one you're talking about. That's a Collins project.
Right.
It was Burke Richardson who was in front of us for that.
Okay. Maybe I was not at that meeting. I don't remember that at all. But anyway, okay.
If I remember correctly, the setbacks though, Danny, the setbacks were pretty decent. Like there were 15 feet, and I don't remember it covering a ton. I don't remember that being an issue, but
yeah, I don't think it was either. I think what the problem was meeting the 25 feet setback because it's a corner lot.
exactly. That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay.
And that was brought up.
What was that, Barry?
I said that was brought up at that meeting too.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't think the lot coverage was brought up.
Okay.
It was, but it was explained that there was a lot more property on the east side than what we had assumed. Because I had the same problem. But it was told as far as the pervious and all that, and it was pretty close.
Okay.
Okay. Other items of old business?
Good evening. My name is Paul Smith, and I'm on with my mom and dad, but I don't know if we're old business or new business.
This is old business, yes.
So we're on old business, but is our presentation considered old business or new business?
This is old business. Mhm. Go ahead.
So I can speak? Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Just, I guess to recap the discussion or the issue is we're wanting to speak with you about the common what we call a common walkway at 1380 East Shore. And I had provided to Mr. Adams some emails and some other correspondence. Nothing obviously which is official BZA documentation, but the issue goes back a couple years, and our family was brought to believe, I think, or over time led to believe that there was supposed to be an agreement for a shared walkway related to a new cottage that was being put in place to the south of 1380, and now this spring there's been a private fence put up, and it's heading in a completely different direction than what we thought was agreed to, and that's what we wanted to discuss with you tonight.
Okay, I did get your emails, and I did read through them. I went back and looked at the minutes from the board meeting, and I looked at all the finding of facts materials that we had that the members of the board, and I'm the only member of the board that's still on. That was a completely different board except for myself. And I even checked the writings that they had. There was absolutely nothing mentioned in the minutes, nor on any of the finding of facts from the members of anything about a shared sidewalk, nothing about a fence. Any of that was not on there. And as far as the board's variance, we approved the variance, and I must say that the 5 members of the board at that time were all very good about making notes of if there were any things that were not on the variance that we were agreeing to. There was only thing that was mentioned was the fact of changing putting the 5 lots into 1 lot. It was the only thing mentioned on any of the 5 board members' papers for the finding of facts. So we have absolutely no record of any shared sidewalk or anything like that in any kind of agreement. Now, there might have been some with the 2 parties involved, but the Board of Zoning Appeals was not involved with that at all. The only thing that we can do with that is to say, we approve the variance. It sounds like something that needs to be worked out by the 2 parties involved, but the board is not in any kind of position to make that judgment. All we do is approve a variance or not approve it. And we take that job very seriously, and we try to do the best that we can, and we also try to make notes of anything that we have agreed to. But like I said, I find absolutely nothing where we have agreed to anything with the shared sidewalk. So I at this point, I don't think the board of Zoning Appeals can really do any satisfaction for what you would like on this. I think it has to be done some other way.
Well, and I appreciate those comments. That's hard to swallow, only because a lot of the correspondence that we've had back, a year or 2 ago when things were happening and the cottage was being demolished, and we were checking in with Mr. DeWitt and Jonathan, and as you can see in the emails, we had no reason to believe that there wasn't an agreement, because we were told. There's some quotes in there, you know, I've talked to Chuck. He's reminded the lawyer that of the shared sidewalk, the shared walk agreement.
Are you talking about
he's assured me that. I'm sorry.
Were you talking about Mr. Easterday? Is that the lawyer?
Yeah. There's just we've had comments. You know, we were trying to do the right thing and get guidance, and really the comments that we received from the two individuals we were talking with were that, you know, that the parties had been reminded, the lawyer had been contacted several times to make sure that the shared walkway would be done, and you know, and it just and now there's a fence that's probably, you know, 36 inches from our windows. You know, it makes it very difficult for us as a family who've been on the cottage and been on the lake for 40 years to utilize anything on the south side of the property.
Well, I realize.
So, yeah, I get what you're saying. There's nothing in the minutes. That's really why we brought this up, you know, a year and a half ago, was there, we didn't find anything in the minutes. We looked on the website, we downloaded the minutes. There's some discussion in there from the Kimmlers, but that's why we kind of went back to Mr. DeWitt and Jonathan about, you know, we don't see anything in there, but we want to make sure that we have this in writing, or we have this agreement, because it's going to negatively impact that side of the cottage from a usability standpoint. We're not talking about resale or anything like that. It's just anyway. So that's what we were trying to do, and I get what you're saying. There's nothing in writing. So now we have a situation where it's too late. The fence is put in place, and our neighbor, you know, had even talked about never doing it, and now it hasn't been done. So we're struggling a little bit with where do we go from here.
And like I said, as far as the Board of Zoning Appeals, I have no record and I have no recollection even of a shared walkway being talked about. And maybe it was. I'm not saying I made a lot of things come before this board, but there might have been talk between the two sides after the meeting, during the meeting, whatever, when we were discussing this whole variance, and possibly it was, but it was not put into, and the board did not agree to passing this only if it has a shared walkway. That was not included. And that's really all I can do for you is say that, you know, and I don't know, I can't change what's in the minutes.
Can I comment on that, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to put my
Barry.
2 cents worth on. Yeah, this is Barry. We have had discussions, I know, at planning commission meetings, as well as even maybe outside, but questions asked, you know, what they do about shared sidewalks. And I mean, just to let this gentleman know that a shared sidewalk in any condition is nothing of our authority. And we've always had to tell the people, you know, you've got a civil part of it, the only way that can be taken care of. But we have no authority as far as to back you, Dan, as far as what you're saying. I mean, there should not be anything as far as recorded in minutes as far as any commission approving anything like that.
Well, and again, I'm only repeating what we were told as far as, you know, what the arrangements were. We were not attending those meetings, and when we didn't see anything in the minutes, and our neighbor kept talking about putting in a walkway and then putting in some river rock on the tail end, on the far north of that walk, which kind of leads us to believe that, you know, there's going to be kind of a general use area in between the cottages, which has always been the case. We had no reason to doubt it, you know, but now we come in, you know, this spring, you know, we're cottage seasons again, and we have a fence that's, you know, that you could reach out of the window and touch with your hand.
you know?
Right.
And this is a shock, and now we're left to try to deal with it between neighbors, and so far it hasn't gone well. And so I get what you're saying, but we kept asking questions, and we were told, you know, the attorney's been reminded, the family's been reminded. Yeah, I mean, the train's left the station, and I get what you're saying, but we've got a tough issue here now.
Right, you do, and I understand.
If anybody
completely.
want to go over there, take a look at it. You know, 1380. You kind of walk sideways, you know, between the cottages to get through. I mean, it's
Well,
yeah,
the
it's
one
a
of,
shame.
and I'll make a comment.
Yeah.
Part of the
Well,
problem
I
is
do understand, and I do empathize the same. But I know we've had cases where it'd be a shared sidewalk for 20 years, and then one of the properties sells, and the new property owner doesn't agree with the shared sidewalk, and they want to put a fence up. So, I mean, it's happened before, and
Yeah,
I
that's
hate
exactly
it.
what happened.
Yeah, and I just wish there was some other way, but I mean, we just don't even have the authority. I mean, we got the sentiment exactly, but no authority.
the only thing the Board of Zoning Appeals can do is grant a variance, and that we did that. Ideally, the homes would have the setbacks, the 10-foot setbacks. This would not be a problem if every home along the lake did. But we also know that your home is very close to the sideline or property is the way it's built, which is a problem also. So it's not.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I'm sorry?
I wouldn't disagree with that. You're correct. I mean, the existing building is very close to the line.
Yes, it is.
Our cottage.
Exactly. And there's nothing we can do about that, but we can try to do what we can with kind of variance. We can't guarantee all the different agreements that the two neighbors might have with each other. And that's what it sounds like. At some point, somebody said, well, we can put a shared sidewalk here, but that was never brought to the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. And there was nothing put in the variance about it. So there's really nothing the Board of Zoning Appeals can do with this. And you can say, well, I thought. All I can do is speak for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Our records show that we did not grant the variance, saying that this was a stipulation. And I don't know what else to tell you. There's other ways for you to handle this, I suppose, but it's not through the Board of Zoning Appeals. I don't think we can.
Go ahead.
We cannot go back and reverse what we did at this point, because that was granted and the house is built.
Yeah, I just, you know, I get what you're saying. I understand there's nothing in writing. When I have a quote that says from Jonathan, I did discuss this matter with Chuck today. He said,
listen,
I understand that, but it was based on something. He said there was knowledge a shared walkway was going to be put in, and he reminded the homeowner's attorney that it must be done. You know, but I get what you're saying. There's nothing in writing, so we're left out in the cold. So anyway, that's all we wanted to present to you tonight.
And I appreciate that, and I'm sorry, but as far as the Board of Zoning Appeals, there's nothing really that we can do about that. Like I said, and if it had been discussed, and that was part of the agreement from the Board of Zoning Appeals, I will guarantee you the 4 other people who were on the board would have made note of that in the finding of facts. They almost always put comments, and especially if something that we were saying needed to be done or whatever. The only thing that was commented on in any of the 5 was the fact that it would be put into one building lot or one lot from the 5 that it was. And if the neighbors did not object. That's all it said for any of them. And it was almost verbatim for each 5, and nobody mentioned anything about a shared sidewalk. Where that came from, I don't know. If it came between a talk between the lawyer, I don't know. But it definitely was not something that the board agreed to.
Yeah, I have trouble with that too. You know, because when we talked about it with these couple people, it wasn't like it was some strange foreign concept. The people had a recollection of these discussions. You know, we didn't have to explain what it was and why we were wanting this shared sidewalk, or where does this concept come from. You know, it was like, oh yeah, you know what, I did this and I did that and I talked to this person and everything seems to be fine. So I get what you're saying. There's some disconnect between what people knew and what got handled in the meeting. And obviously it didn't get handled in the meeting because there's nothing in writing. So we just struggle with that. That's all.
And I'm sorry about that, but I don't think I can give you any answers here.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
Any other items of old business? Any items of new business?
I'd like to reiterate on.
What was that, Barry?
I'd like to mention the fact, I mean, we discussed it a little bit even at one of the cases tonight, but I mean, I have a very strong feeling, because I mean, you talk about new houses when they're built, you know, and we're looking at people needing variances, you know, to come within so many feet of the property line. And you said, you know, earlier, you know, like, hold the gentleman there, you know, if the house would have had the 10-foot setback, he wouldn't have had the problem to having now. And I just don't understand if there's something needs to be done or what direction we need to take as far as the new homes going in without a variance. Because I understand why a new home, unless there's a hardship of, I know like over on Three Court and stuff where you have the property at an angle from the lake, you know, and it's just almost impossible to build a new home without encroaching that setback. But if there's any way possible when you build a new home, I think a new home should not require any kind of setback variance. You know, because of a new home, it can be built according to the size of the lot to meet those setbacks. I just don't understand a new home being a hardship.
Barry,
and maybe we do need, yeah.
Hey Barry, it's Lee. I don't think we have the absolute rule here. I could be wrong. When I lived out east, if you tore a house down, you lost anything that was grandfathered. If you tore something down, you had to obey you had to obey the setbacks. You couldn't tear down and then go back and say, but I used to only be 3 feet off the property line and I still want to build there. The only thing you could do, people would get around it by maybe leaving up one wall or something, but that was it. And I'm only suggesting that if you made it that if you tear something down, you have to deal with, you know, the new setbacks. But the flip of that is, so, you know, I live on Forest Place where these little tiny strips of land, if people actually tore their houses down, you know, you'd have a 10-foot wide house.
Right.
It's hard.
And I know we've got those conditions, but I know there's so many cases that you see people that buy a house or a lot, you know, somewhere, and it's torn down and then sold. The property sold after it's torn down, and then the people that build a new house, they're still trying to go by the same old foundation. And it just seems like there's a loophole there that's wide open for so many builders and so many new homeowners. And I don't know if we need to close those gaps or what, because it seems like there's so many variances that are applied for on new homes. And it should be a little different somewhere along, I guess.
Is that a planning job?
Has the zoning board approached or talked about that, Barry?
Pardon?
As
We
Plan
love
Commission,
Yeah, I think it would be, but I just wanted to bring it before the Board of Zoning Appeals, just for the fact that we seems like we've got a hardship that maybe we're creating by not having the ordinances from the Planning Commission. I don't know. I was just kind of looking for ideas.
okay, yeah, I was gonna say, but, you know, our job as a BZA is simply to take the rules that are there and see if we can apply a variance somehow.
Right.
The rules are there, and we said everybody has to meet all the rules, then we wouldn't be obviously in existence.
Right,
I mean,
right,
that's what.
right. But I mean, I know a lot of times and not necessarily a non-conforming lot, but it might be non-conforming due to the foundation that's on there, but it's still a buildable lot. And yet when somebody tears a house down, they want to build it back on the same foundation, but that's not really the reason for the foundation. It says on a non-conformable lot. But a lot of times the house is what creates it being non-conformable. When the house is removed, it's no longer a non-conformable lot.
Well, I thought that what we talked about was the fact that if it is completely torn down, my understanding was if they wanted to take the present house and had to replace the foundation because it was crumbling, they could take it down and put it up there in the same spot if the foundation was crumbling.
And that is correct what we talked about. But one of the things you have to realize that these houses were built in the early 1900s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, even up until the 60s. Most of those foundations aren't built to today's specs with the concrete that we have and or the methods or means we had, and they're going to be crumbling and they probably will come down. So that's going to be for every house that's torn down. The same problem is it was a poor foundation.
Right. And Chuck, you're right, 100%. I mean, we've got houses on the East Shore that don't even have foundations. I mean,
Right.
and you know what I'm saying. But
Right.
I just know that a lot of those are big enough lots that even though the foundation's crumbling, if they were subdivided over years and stuff, it created the non-conforming part because of where it was allowed before the ordinances were written. And I know they're grandfathered, but at the same time, once the house gets tore down, if the house is gone, it's a conformable lot. It's already a buildable lot. And you'd have to go back to the nonconformity, which we would be creating a nonconforming lot from a conforming lot, which the ordinances state that we cannot do. So there's got to be a guideline somewhere where we draw that line, and we don't have it in writing.
Well, I think that would need to come from the Plan Commission.
Yep. I agree.
Right, and it will. Yeah, and I was just trying to get a little insight from, I mean, I know you guys enforce, I guess we do, on both sides, but I don't like the word enforce, but I mean, we do try to maintain the conformity of everything as far as our ordinances and our comprehensive plan. So I just wanted to get ideas from all members.
Okay, any other questions? New business? Mr. DeWitt, Building Commissioners report.
Right now, Culver, Union Township is very hot. We've got a lot of construction going on, a lot of new homes, a lot of additions. Right now, it doesn't look like that's going to slow down, and the economy or the change doesn't appear to be slowing down Culver. So I'm seeing a little bit difference in other parts of the county, but here, not at all. We're getting questions and calls and new permits being applied for every day.
Did everybody hear Mr. DeWitt okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. DeWitt? Okay, our next scheduled meeting is May 21st, Thursday. I think this worked out fairly well tonight. But,
Yeah, thank you everybody for giving it a whirl. Appreciate it.
Yeah, learning curve.
Yeah, you did great, Dan.
touch.
You did
You had said we have.
We have one new case and these 2 continuances for
Okay.
next month.
So next month, we're looking at 3. We have 2 continuances and 1 new case coming up. So we will be having a meeting on the 21st.
All right.
Okay?
Sounds good. Yep.
Maybe we'll be permitted to be all together again and we won't have to deal with this, but
Who knows?
who knows? That's right.
Mm.
And maybe
I
we should
pray
be
everybody stays
recording
safe.
all of our- maybe we should be recording all of our meetings and that way we wouldn't have any question what was agreed to.
A lot more bolder when we're not being faced at, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
This
Nice job.
meeting-
Thanks.
Thank
This
you.
meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, Dan.
all.
Night, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jonathan, for doing this. Do you have any recollection of any?
Yeah.
And where was the agreement made?
There was not any agreement made.